Welcome to On the Shelf, the show all about the library. I am Sabina Simonson, Outreach Services and Volunteer Coordinator for the library, and I like to welcome my friend, Tim Young. He's a local author and children's book author and illustrator, and he is here because he has a very awesome surprise for all of us. A very new thing for you. And spoiler alert, yes, it is a book. However, it is, ta-da!
My first chapter book.
His first chapter book, and it's titled?
Mac and the Millstone of Time. And yeah, it's a
beautiful book.
Well, thank you.
I had the privilege to get an advance copy.
Because she's special.
Because I am special. And I got to read it. And I have to say, congratulations. You have an amazing imagination.
Well, thank you.
I love the story.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
How much can we reveal about the story?
Well, we can tell a bit about it. Obviously, from the title, it's about time and about a millstone. So it's set at the old Y Mill in Y Mills, Maryland, which
Yes.
is named after the mill.
Right.
The mill's been there longer than the town. It was built in 1682. And this is the story of a mouse named Mac who lives at the mill, and he accidentally goes through a hole in the old millstone that's lying in front of the mill, and ends up going back in time to 1682 when the mill was built, and then he's got to figure out how to get home, and he has this whole adventure trying to figure out how to get back and forth. He has to get through the hole in the millstone, and sometimes the millstone's hanging up, and sometimes it's lying in a field in the back, and he has all kinds of mouse adventures trying to get home.
And lots of other characters in there, like the turtle, and I don't want to give anything away, but how they all connect in the end. You tied up with such a neat bow. I totally loved it. I really did. What age group is this book for?
So we geared this towards younger readers, fourth grade especially. Okay. It's got some history in it. It has some Maryland history, local history, U.S. history, and so we kind of geared it towards the fourth grade history curriculum for Maryland. So if a school wanted to use this book, it would be very appropriate for fourth graders. But obviously, younger readers would like it to be read to them. Older readers would probably enjoy it.
For the story, yes.
It's a story that I feel it's a fun story whether you live here or not. If you're in California and you read this book, you're going to enjoy it, and then you find out that the mill's a real place. That's a bonus.
And you come and visit. I like that in every chapter you have that historic chapter where it literally tells you everything chronologically about the mill, when it was built, what it was used for, all these things with dates in it, and then it always says, but Mac, being a mouse, knew nothing of this. And quite frankly, me being a person, there was a lot of stuff I didn't know either. I learned a lot just of the history of the mill by reading your book.
Same here. Well, in researching the book and working on the book and working with the people at the mill, they taught me a lot of the history of the mill, and that was very helpful.
Speaking of the people of the mill, how did you choose the location of the mill? How did the whole collaboration come?
Sure. So the folks at the mill were looking for an author to write a story about the mill. Someone at the mill had written a couple of paragraphs about a mouse named Mac who lives at the mill, but they were looking for someone to turn it into a picture book.
Okay.
And I met with them, and I had a very nice meeting, and I explained to them that I'm not really a local author, I don't really write books like that, but if I have an idea, maybe I'll let you know. I'll see what I come up with. And then I'm walking around the mill, and I come across the millstone in the front, and there's a hole in the center of the mill. It's about the right size for a mouse to go through. And I thought, well, where would a mouse go if he went through that hole? And it hit me that, he'd go back in time and have this whole adventure. How do you tell the history of something without going into the past? And so the mouse ends up going into the past and touches down at different points in the mill's history, during the Revolutionary War, during the Civil War. So that I told the folks at the mill, I think I have an idea for you. But it's not a cute little picture book. It's a little more than that. It's a little more of a story.
And how many of us have been to that Mills mill and seen the millstone, and we didn't have any ideas like that? How long did it take you to write the book? Because this seems to be, it's a lot of writing. And
it is.
A lot of illustration.
Well, and it's funny because I've joked throughout my career that I'm an illustrator who figured out how to write. And so picture books were a natural for me because there's a lot less words in them.
Sure.
This book has 12,000 words in it and 10 chapters. So it was a challenge for me. And but I had an inspired story, I felt. It really kind of came to me a lot. I had a lot of author friends who previewed early copies and gave me a lot of advice. I've had editors look at it. And it was, it was a lot of work. It was about a year's work between writing the story and doing all of the illustrations. And so, yeah, it was roughly about a year working on it.
And it's beautiful illustrations. And as I'm looking through this book and reading it, I am reminded of maybe another mouse, of another book.
I was.
And were you inspired?
I was. So I loved, as a child, Runaway Ralph and the Mouse and the Motorcycle by Beverly Cleary. And I still have a childhood copy of it. I wish I had brought it today. I meant to. I'm sorry. But
you can check it out at the library.
Yeah, so when I was working, deciding how to do the illustrations, I knew the illustrations inside would be black and white. So I pulled out Runaway Ralph and I looked at the illustrations that were done by Louis Darling and used that as inspiration for the style of the way that I drew Mac. And I even, there's a Ralph in the book. There's a mouse named Ralph. He's not that Ralph.
Oh.
He's not that Ralph. But, well, you can use your imagination, obviously. It's just in honor of.
Maybe it is that Ralph.
Well, it could be. There had to be a Ralph in there. So.
And he does travel back in time, so it could be Ralph, right?
Yeah.
Now, how does this book benefit the mill in Mills? Because I understand there is.
Yeah, so what we did is they paid me a little bit of money while I was initially working on the book. And when my publisher, Schiffer, who's been publishing most of my books, agreed that they would publish it, I gave half the royalties to the mill. So every time a book is purchased, I get a small amount of money and they get a small amount of money. The mill is also going to be making it available at the mill in their shop.
Sure.
So that, when people visit the mill, they'll be able to purchase copies. And I'll probably get up there as often as I can and sign every book that's at the mill so that they have signed copies to
Oh, I like that very much. It's very generous of you, too, to donate part of your royalties.
Well, this wouldn't have happened if they hadn't have been looking for somebody to write a book. I mean, and I still can't believe that I wrote this book. I mean, I'm not that kind of an author, but
well, you are.
I am now.
He is this kind of an author, and I really encourage you to read this book because it's a fun story. I think kids will totally enjoy that story.
And I feel like I've had other ideas for longer stories to tell, middle grade chapter books, that I abandoned because I didn't think I was going to be the one to write them. And now I'm thinking, I'm going back to those and saying, all right, maybe I am the guy who can write these books. So.
That leads me to my next question. What is on the horizon for you?
So I have a few things in the works, nothing new, well, sort of new. So I do have a new book coming out in the fall. That's an old book. It's I Hate Picture Books. It is the 10th anniversary of I Hate Picture Books.
Is it really already?
Yeah, and so we are doing a special edition with... So in the book there are over 260 picture books referenced, and I decided to add extra books to the books that are in there. So there's at least 50 new books in there. And so kids looking around the floor, around the Max, the character in the book, will be able to pick out new ones, and that'll be a fun, like, scavenger hunt sort of thing to
That's a great
And
idea.
they're all books from the
That's-
past 10 years.
Sure,
so,
sure,
yeah.
sure. And you can all find those books at the
Yeah.
Talbot County Free Library. Don't
That's right.
forget that. Now, I picked up the new attraction, this one, and as I'm flipping through, lo and behold, who do I find? You right there in color and above the fold,
Yep.
talking about the Old Wine Mill season opener. So
Yes.
you will take your book, I guess, to the Old Mill. Tell
Yeah,
me what
so
is going on there.
So May 4th is the grand opening of the season for the mill.
Okay.
They operate all summer long and well into the fall. So we're going to have a special opening where I'll be there all day signing copies of the book. They're going to have a cooking demonstration with some, I believe, Revolutionary War reenactors.
Oh, wow.
And some other things going on. And this will be the local premiere of the book. I'm going to be doing the Annapolis Book Festival in April. That's the other side of the bay. And, of course, we have our Chesapeake Children's Book Festival coming up in the summer, where the book will also be available. But if you can get out to the mill on May 4th and get your copy there, that would be a fun place to, you can say, hey, I bought this book at the place where it happened.
I know I will be there. I have to say that I have my copy already, and I have my own personal Mac the Mouse, and Tim wrote to Sabina, my favorite television co-host, Tim. And it's so cute, and I love the sunglasses on the mouse, right?
He's a TV star.
He's a TV star. Of course, his only television co-host, but
That's true.
that aside, I love what you wrote. But you also brought up the Chesapeake Children's Book Festival,
Mm-hmm.
so let's just really quick, because we will meet again and really talk
Yeah.
about this one. But you have a poster, right, for it, because it's coming up.
June 22nd, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. We've got our authors picked out.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be putting that on the website very, very shortly. And yeah, we're all set to go. This year's theme is Adventure Begins at Your Library, and we've got I did a whole bunch of characters having different adventures. And
It's
yeah,
a
we're
great
excited.
poster, and it's true, adventure does begin at your library.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't want you to go anywhere, because I have another special guest coming up right after this.
The Avalon Foundation and MCTV programming is proudly supported by Chesapeake College. Chesapeake College, your time, your place.
Hello, and welcome back to On the Shelf. Now, what is better than having one author? Well, two, of course. Welcome, Steve Lingeman. He is the author of Talbot People, Story and Photographs.
Right.
It is the buzz all around Talbot County. These are people that you see them in the stores, you see them on the street, you see them everywhere. And he has taken a lot of photos of people and their stories and put them together in this one book. Hello, Steve, and welcome.
How are you?
I am great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Now, what gave you the idea to put Talbot People into a book?
Well, Talbot People got named at the last minute. I used to have a working story called different working title as Talbot Humans instead, and that copied too much. Well, anyway, we got down to Talbot People, and why did I decide to do this? Well, I ran across a guy who's now deceased in Heber Springs, Arkansas. His last name was Farmer, and he became semi-famous out there, as well as collected. His work was collected, and they were all pictures like what's in this book.
Oh.
And I thought that's a pretty interesting approach. Well, he worked out of a rat trap studio there, and but it did have natural light. And every photograph he took was on a glass plate. So in other words, just like the Civil War,
Huh.
like they did in the
Really?
Civil War, yes. He accumulated over 6,000 photographs, and at the very last minute, when they were tearing down his studio in the town, it became a wreck, you know. And one of the neighbors dashed in there who was a pharmacist, and he saved all of these.
Wow.
And 3,000
story.
of them,
Wow.
3,000 of them have been restored, and they're now stored somewhere in Little Rock.
Oh,
But the important part is that he was a good photographer. He 30 years, 20 years there in Heber Springs, all through World War II and the Korean War. And then in 1959, he died in his studio, in his dark room,
Wow.
as all good photographers should.
are you a photographer by trade?
I've been a professional photographer for since 2000.
Okay. Oh, that's...
Yeah.
Now, so you take this idea that you get in Arkansas, and then you start picking people here. How did you pick the
Well,
subject
it was a
for
series
your
of
book?
events that occurred, and I know where you're headed with this. I went to a fellow by the name of Buck Duncan.
Oh,
He-
yes, I know.
Buck referred me to somebody else, and I wound up at the Chesapeake Multicultural Resource Center, and we were going to do a book originally of the families that they have helped over the years. Well, guess what? We ran out of time. That took an entire year to get that thing up and rolling. And then the 10th anniversary for Chessmark came around, and it became impossible to say, number one, we couldn't get the book done in time, and two, it wasn't going to make enough money to benefit what they do as a program
right,
there.
right.
So we did a different program for them, and I continued with this. And as you can see, there are families here on the cover, as in the book. They were part of the Chessmark program. And I said, well, people get pretty bored looking at somebody else's dog and their kids and so forth, even though the photographs some of the kids are gorgeous.
Sure.
So what we did was we said, okay, who could I think are really interesting people? And everybody that were individuals or couples were interesting people. Everything from a local doctor that had retired to another photographer to, say, this couple here, which were hilarious. And every one of these people in this book has a story.
Sure.
And I decided, well, I like to write a little bit, so I started writing stories. Well, that morphed into people writing their own stories. One guy even wrote a poem,
Oh, wow.
a really long poem about the death of his wife and the trauma regarding that. You never know when you look at people on the street what's really happening
That is so true.
between the ears.
That
Yeah.
is so
And this
true.
guy is still traumatized.
Yeah. That's
from
why
it.
kindness matters so much, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
Well, that's
Just
why
be
your
kind.
story is important.
Yeah.
You came from Austria.
Mm-hmm.
You were born in this country, correct?
I was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But many people in this town. My wife and I have been here for. It depends on when you came down here. 10 years.
Oh, you're a
Okay.
newcomer. He's a
Oh.
newcomer.
That's okay.
We're not natives yet.
Yeah, we're 21-year come here's, my wife and I. So.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, it's actually an interesting area. Talbot County has gotten more dense. More people have retired here. But everybody that comes down here, I haven't met anybody. But when you peel the onion off and you get a few layers down, they were a aerospace engineer.
A lot of interesting people in Talbot
You know,
County. A lot of interesting people. I have a lot of volunteers at the library, and it's amazing when you read their background. A lot of interesting people. Now, what was the most difficult part of this whole undertaking of putting the book together?
Mostly scheduling people in there dense enough so that I wasn't going 2 and 3 days with my studio empty.
Right.
I needed really to be able to do one or two families or people a week. Then the next was finding a publisher of record so that we could, and the Talbot Historical Society stepped up, and they said, well, we'll be publisher of record, and which is important if you want to get grants and so forth. So eventually we will go out there looking for money to do volume 2. I don't know how I'm going to finance this, but my wife and I totally financed the first volume.
Oh, wow.
And the printing.
Wow, that is a labor of love, isn't it?
It's pardon?
A labor of love
Yes.
for you.
Well,
you financed it? Wow.
It's interesting you should bring that up. Someone asked me this question at the Historical Society, and someone will ask it at the library too. And my answer is, I fell in love with everybody I photographed. Not, romantic love, but
sure.
when they're in front of my camera and I'm talking to them, I have to energize the situation. And once it gets a little juiced up, then they start telling you the story. They will relax.
Right. Yeah,
you know,
need to make people
and
comfortable.
I put on, can I open this up?
Please.
This guy right here was one of the main engineers, program engineers for the Voyager. They're still flying.
Wow. Yeah.
He's a professional photographer in town. I wanted to show this. This is Ned and his grandsons, and that's how I got people relaxed.
It's a cute picture. It's one of our
Yeah.
favorites.
I would put
have to say.
the Groucho glasses on him.
It also fits Ned's personality. I have now met
You know-
Ned,
you know Ned
and I
very
can attest this photo really fits his personality.
How many shots of each person would you say you took?
There's a couple of people in there, I could have done it in 5
Mm-hmm.
and only picked one.
Right.
The families are a little more difficult in the sense that if you have a family of 6 standing in front of you, there's always going to be somebody with their eyes closed. And I was using strobe lights.
Right.
And I might do a different technique for volume 2, but that was the difficulty. The more people you have, the more difficult it becomes.
I'm sure every family who has their Christmas card, the photos taken,
Right.
can attest to this.
Exactly.
All right.
Look what just happened with the royal family.
I know, right?
To answer your question, Tim, up to 60. I probably did, in some cases, more than 60 photographs. Because a lot of the people, so say a woman comes in with her 2 or 3 kids and her husband, they want to, will you take a picture of the couple? Yes, of course I will, you're here. So he took that picture. How about Billy and his dad? Next thing you know, we're doing Billy and his dad. So when you get all said in that combination,
Right.
you could have 60 some odd photographs.
Did the people have a say in the photo that ultimately went into the book, or did you choose it just you, or did you show it to them and say which is your favorite one?
Well, the choice was the best photograph, and not necessarily my favorite. In other words, what I wanted was some emotional component, or I wanted some dramatic movement, or I wanted some expression that made the photograph interesting, so that when you went to the gallery also, by the way, I didn't know I was going to have a gallery show at the library
Yes.
as well as the Talbot
I know, right?
Historical Society simultaneously. So I never dreamed in my wildest imagination we would have 2 shows at the same time. But the important point is every one of those photographs that you put in the book has to be worthy
Sure.
of being there. And it does, I mean, we've got some crazy stuff that when they start fooling around, the kids start fooling around, they're interesting photos, but they're more like snapshots.
Right.
I especially liked your photo of Dave Harp, which is him blurred from. I don't know what he was doing. He
Don't
was
take my
moving.
photo. Don't take my photo.
But him being a photographer, I thought that was.
Do you know?
Yeah.
You know Dave?
Yeah.
Now, speaking of the gallery show that you have at the Historical Society, Steve also has one at the library, in the Eastern Library, in the meeting room, Please come in and look at it. It is awesome. And it's completely straight because Ned was there and he came and he hung those so beautifully.
Sure.
But not only are you having the gallery show at the library, Steve will also be talking at the library. You will have a presentation about your book and a book signing, so you too can purchase a book right then and there. And this will be on April 18th at 6:30 at the Easton Library.
Right.
And we are looking forward to seeing you there.
So the 18th is one that I'm really looking forward to because it's a new venue. The Historical Society, we're doing one next Wednesday on the 3rd, but it's in the daytime, and it attracts a completely different demographic
yes.
at 1 o'clock as opposed to 6:30. Is it 5:30 or 6:30?
6:30.
6:30, so I'm really looking forward to that show.
Me too. Thank you so very much for being here. Again, the book is Talbot People. Do come and see the presentation at the library on April 18th. And speaking of the library, I want to let you know quickly that we have now digital literacy classes that you can take at the library. For anyone who needs help, you need to have an appointment, but they are easily made. And we also have case managers from the Social Services, Department of Social Services, now every Monday at the library, and they're out in the lobby. No appointment needed for that, and that's some really good work. And where can you find more information, you ask? Well, let me tell you. We have a very active Facebook page, so you can go there. We have an active Instagram page. You can go there, or you simply can call us at 410-822-1626, or go to tcfl.org, and you have all the events coming up. We have a lot of stuff coming up for kids and for adults. I want to take a quick moment and say thank you to one of Talbot County's people, and his name is Rue Wood, and he is a local realtor, and every year he organizes a fundraiser, a raffle, in memoriam of his son Peter, who was a volunteer at the library. And the money from this raffle is donated to the library in order to buy Vox books. And Vox books are books that talk. They are for children, and they are an amazing learning tool for kids. So this year's raffle winner was Randy Hunt, who donated his proceeds back to the library also, which was really generous. And then I also want to thank Amy Hines and the staff from Out of the Fire restaurant, who also donated $500 to our Vox Books collection. So thank you very much. If any one of you want to donate anything, we have not once turned anyone away, so please help us out. In the meantime, we will see you at the library. We will see you on the 18th because Steve Lingeman will be there, and you do want to meet him in person. We will see in the library all the time, right? He's always there, and then we'll have the Children's Book Festival coming up, and I will be sure to go on May 4th down to the Y Mills and take a look at the millstone myself, and God knows what's going to happen there.
Just don't fall through the hole.
Don't fall through the hole. In the meantime, we'll see you all at the library. Take care. Bye-bye. Look who loves the library. Carol Boston Weatherford and her son, Jeffrey Boston Weatherford, authors and illustrators of the book Kin, Rooted in Hope.